Okay, well then I would like to call the meeting of February 26th. I wrote that down. The time is now 7:31, and if you could rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first item is the approval of agenda. The only thing that I'm going to want to table is the curriculum committee appointments. I just need a little bit more time to get established when we're actually gonna have a meeting, because when Walt decided to do the survey, it was not a golden ticket of times for everyone, and so I'm just gonna get that going so that when we do the appointments, you guys can take off from the committee. So we're just gonna table that, so next meeting should be ready to go. Approval of the minutes.
I actually have something I'd like to add to the agenda.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to add, I guess it would be still H.5. Motion to discuss protocol for board members to give directives to the superintendent. I can kind of have a little discussion, a little more about that.
Did anyone second that?
Second.
Okay, any
What?
discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I'll stay until another talk what it's about.
Hey Karen, can you repeat that motion Mike didn't hear?
Yeah.
That's why we're gonna discuss it.
Oh, am I saying it again? No, I'm sorry. Just
Protocol for board members to give directives to the superintendent
like while we're in meetings, or you're talking about
In
like
general.
while we're outside of meetings?
globally.
Okay. I'll say yay.
I'm adding it to the agenda to have a discussion, that's all.
So it's just discussion,
I'll still abstain.
so discussion of protocol for
So that becomes H5?
H5. Okay. Now approval of minutes. We can do February 10th, 2020. First, if there's any revisions. Motion.
Motion to approve the February 10th, 2020 special meeting minutes.
Second.
All those in, discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, so let's move. Any corrections for the February 12th, 2020 meeting?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the February 12th, 2020 minutes.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, those are. We'll move to public participation. We have Tony the timer for 2 minutes, and he will raise his hands with 30 seconds left.
Here for one reason, and you just put it up the agenda. We'll sit now. Liz Costa, 54 Josiah Lane. I'd just like to take an opportunity to advocate for Kate to be the chair of the curriculum committee. She has the most experience of anyone in the room, and if in lieu of Dr. Willett having multiple jobs, I would just ask you to consider utilizing an expert on the team. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Correspondence, Tony?
All right. We received an email to the board discussing concern over drills on the anniversary of school tragedy. An email sharing information on the value and actions of our paraprofessionals. A letter supporting the BOE adopted budget. A letter with questions for the group meeting between the Board of Education and the Town Council. An email giving information on Mental Health Week. Email asking the status of questions that were submitted for the budget on the website. An email articulating the value of art in the life of the writer's daughter. An email requesting to be read aloud discussing the value of our paraprofessionals.
Okay. Let's go to points of information.
Madam Chair. I have one point, and I just wanted to, especially given that last one where we received an email that was requesting to be read aloud into the minute. I've had some conversations with Dr. Willett. We're trying to research standards policies. We reached out to Cade, Dr. Willett's reaching out to some of his sources to try to figure out from a policy perspective what to do in cases like that. The correspondence report, our policies only state in one place in the duties of the secretary that correspondence is to be dealt with. It doesn't give us.
To be what?
To be dealt with. It's incredibly vague. Then you go down to our policy where we say the minutes. So I was trying to see in there if maybe if these letters had a place in the minutes for that policy. And that policy simply says that our attendance, the votes, and the results of those votes have to be there. Again, the minutes we have significantly more detail in there, but per policy, they don't have to. Cade came back and said that there really is no standard that says what should be in the minutes and what should be read aloud. I looked at the town council last night, and while they did not read them into the minutes, they did take the letters and then include them in the minutes afterwards, which I think has some perils of its own. So I just wanted to put out there, and to put to the people that were requesting that. The reason I did not read that is because I think we as a board want to get just a little bit more information before we start to go down that road.
I just have a quick question. What would be the perils of putting them into the minutes?
Well, that we get, some of the letters that we get are from people that don't necessarily want to stand up there. And so they don't necessarily want their names and their email addresses placed, into the minutes.
I personally, I think if you're willing to write an email, like I have for town council, I've definitely had them added into the minutes, and I don't think that that's anything wrong with that. I feel like if you're writing in to member's office, like.
So we have some experience with this. I think what happens is that when a person writes an email to the board or uses the submission method, they're not always thinking or aware that this will be published for posterity and forever in the document. Because when you publish it in the minutes, it's there 100 years from now. Somebody will go back to the archive and find, so they are not always thinking, okay, this thing's gonna be in here for 10 or 20 years, you know what I'm saying? And I think that's the rub on that particular methodology.
Do you think we should have a disclaimer then?
You can handle it a series of ways. I think that what I've been looking into is just something to give you recommendations that are at the meeting or next week when we sit down, and then you can ultimately decide what you want to do or bring to the board as a conversation has a broader sense. That each of these things do have certain perils to them, and it's just deciding which peril you want to be a part of. I do know that in some cases, when we've had certain situations occur that elicited many emails, that in some of those cases in the past, not everybody was aware that if you submitted it, it was going to go into something that would be public record forever and ever. So I think that's just part of where that comes from, that Mr. Holt is talking about.
I would like, I think, like Dr. Willett suggested there, that if we take the information that we've been researching, Dr. Willett, and bring it back to here. Because I don't know that I have an opinion one way or the other. I'd just like to make sure that whatever we do is standard. That even if it's picking one way or the other, that we set that, and then anybody that writes in has that level of expectation.
I just have a quick question. I guess like what Tony said, was that some people get concerned about spamming in the group and saying what they're saying. And then they do, I've seen where some have had like asterisk, 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 please read this at a meeting, asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. And they get, and obviously there are some, I don't know if we're talking about using our best judgment of what to read, because I guess if one of our, and I don't know where we are allowed to do so.
Right.
Because if somebody says, I want this read into the minutes, then I don't know how we can make that decision or not that decision. So is that what you're saying, that's the policy that you guys are?
Well, I think that's even another layer. So the idea of reading it into the minutes means that if you, and I'm just stating it just out there in general terms,
Right.
I'm not stating an opinion or position, but in that scenario, if you're going to start to read things into minutes, be prepared to either read them all or maybe not, because you're gonna ultimately have to make judgment calls that you will then be held accountable for. People could be angry. So if you're gonna read them in minutes though, many people could submit that, and you wanna keep your meetings a reasonable amount of time, you're not gonna be able to read everything everyone ever gives you into the minutes. So you have no obligation to read things into the minutes that you receive in an email. But you probably want to decide what your protocol will be and then stick to it. So in some cases, certain places say, if you're willing to come to a meeting and make a statement into the minutes, or if somebody read something into the minutes and handed it to Lisa to, as long as it actually corresponds to what they just said, that could be read into the minutes in their 2-minute time period. But if you have 20 emails, all of which want this read into the minutes, you've got a problem, because, now, which do you take, which don't you take, and do you want to sit here for an hour reading everything into minutes? That could get very, very convoluted very quickly. So, I think next week we could probably have some recommendations about where you might want to consider for doing that, and,
Because I know right now I've just got, from my perspective, with the correspondence, there's no guidance that leads in one direction. And to use, some of the examples you were just talking there, that we do have one with the asterisk that says, I want this in the minutes. Did the one before that want it too? They just didn't know that was the rubrics.
Right.
I don't know.
So I guess my question would be is, I know you said, would this be a motion for a future agenda item to talk about the proper
I think they're going to do
process?
some more investigating and come up with
And then I'd like
suggestions.
to bring it back here. I'd like to have that discussion here and make a decision as a board.
So then would it behoove us as board members, so for instance, those folks that do put that on their email, especially while we're transitioning through figuring out the waters of how we're gonna handle it. I know a lot of us respond to some of the emails or all the emails and what have you. Would it behoove us to respond and say, we would really appreciate you coming to our meetings and express, what you put down in your email and in your 2-minute, and offer explain to them we have public participation or what have you. I think that might be a good best practice while we're still navigating the waters. I don't know.
I think you're never gonna go wrong asking people to come and make their statement in a 2-minute. Similarly, if a board member wants to make a statement they read into the minutes, as long as that statement is the same as what they read, we can pass it to Lisa so she has a copy, as long as it is actually the same thing. Because where you get into trouble is if you diverge from something like that. We can't publish something after the fact that isn't what was stated. So we just wanna follow a few standard parameters, and then you're gonna be in a safe space with all that, but this has a lot of little bumps if you don't really consider it carefully.
Perfect. No, I think that's
I wanna just make sure that I have 2 questions. Not really a question. I'm thinking that we have 2 kind of correspondence, and you guys certainly don't make them wrong. We have the ones that are just kind of like, hey, Board of Ed, I'm thinking this, right? And then there's the ones that say, hey, Board of Ed, I'm thinking this, and please read it into the minutes. So, right? I mean, if we kind of lump things out a little bit. So I agree that we should respond saying, okay, we're considering this, and but I'm just wondering, if we need to kind of talk about both of those types of correspondence. Does that make sense? I'm wondering if we need to have kind of a protocol for each type of response, like the general ones that people don't necessarily say, please read into the minutes, and then the other one that they explicitly say, please read into the minutes.
And you're right, there's nothing that says that we have to go all one way or the other, either it's read in or it's not. I completely agree. if somebody takes the time and puts on there, and it's specifically like this in the minutes, then we can look at that in a special circumstance.
Yeah.
I just wanna make sure that, you know, the people that are writing these know, if I put this on here, this is what'll happen.
Right.
If I don't, this is what'll happen, and they've got that level of expectation.
And to that point too, we don't wanna undercut those folks that didn't know they were supposed to write, hey, I want this right into the minutes, because they didn't have access to that piece of information. Like, we still wanna hear from the public, and we wanna make sure that we're doing the public's will, you know, so it's just kind of a,
Because regardless of whether they get read into the minutes or not, if they submit them like to the form or to the entire board, they're still getting their words and their opinions to the entire board. They're still getting responses from a large portion. So that value still exists. But to the point Dr. Willett made, nothing would make me happier than to have them right there.
And I would urge consistency. Because if you don't, you're gonna face, people will not be happy.
this has to have come up before with other boards, so I'm wondering, should we reach out to Kate to ask them?
I did.
That's what you did?
I had an email back from Kate that I can share where they essentially say there is no requirement for any of that.
No, I'm not talking like a requirement, I'm talking like, you know,
Best practice.
They
what do other people do?
They probably don't wanna tell you what to do. That's the thing. They're
Yep.
gonna want you to come up with they'll give you some advisement to the extent that they'll tell Mr. Holt, you have control over what you
You guys
allow
make
and
that
not
decision.
allow.
So maybe it would behoove us, you know, like in our free time, to look at the minutes of other boards and just, you know.
I will say in every correspondence that I send back to somebody, I make sure that I put on our next meetings, like the next meeting, and invite them and let them know, you know, we're having this one in the library program room at this time, we're having this one. And I kind of do a couple of different weeks ahead. So as I try to do, but that's typically like, I almost put it like in my signature line and update it.
When the meetings are
And then
going
it's
out.
just, so they have who, what, when, where, so they can come
Yeah, that's great.
to the meetings.
Yeah, and those are posted online. All of the meetings are posted for, for the whole year, actually.
I'll refer them to like the budget website and I'll copy and paste the link, or
Yeah.
I'll refer to the calendar and copy and paste the link. A lot of folks, there's some folks that have written in year over year, month over month, we know that, right? Then there's some folks that are brand new, fresh names that are still learning the protocol, or still learning, or just starting to get involved, excuse me, you know? So I feel like information, knowledge is power, and I think if we continue to communicate and have a consistent communication, then, you know, the word will spread.
I would just say from past experience that we're gonna get flooded with emails at those important times when we're talking about big things, the budget. You know, in the past, it was all-day kindergarten, issues like that come up. And that's when you're gonna get flooded with emails from people when they have something to say. So I think it's good to have a protocol, but we need just to give you some perspective
Yeah.
on the past.
And I would also make sure to remember that sometimes the emails that we get, you know, contain private information about kids, about what's happening with them.
That's why I don't like the.
And so like saying all emails should automatically go, I think that is a disservice to kids.
And
so
sometimes people write things that 10 years later.
they would feel differently about.
You know, they go to job interviews, let's say that they're young and they state an opinion that they would not agree with 10 years later, but some employer goes and finds the minute. You know, like these kinds of
No, I
things
think I
can
did
happen.
hear, there's, I don't remember exactly what town, but they put all the correspondence at town hall. Like, so people can view them, but they're not, I mean, they're public, but they're not public. So you have to like go out of your way to go and see. I have heard of that before too.
And I was just gonna say, I feel like with some people, I mean, all our emails are FOIA-able, is that a word? But I think when you say you're going to read the minutes out loud, whether they want them or not, or include them in here and people don't know that it's gonna happen, it kind of has that fear, and it might keep the public back from emailing in.
That's what I think.
So, I mean, in regards to currently, somebody wants their letter read into the minutes. I know we don't have a policy on that, let's just include it in the minutes. if we, I don't know, if that's doable, you know, that way it's in there so people know about it. And then take whatever information you guys gather next time,
Like I saw
move forward.
last night at the council, when the correspondence was being read, they had printouts. And read, when the summation was being read, they had the printouts, and when those printouts were handed to the clerk. So if that direction on a limited basis, say for example, like Kate had said, they put asterisk, 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 please read into the minutes, then I can bring a copy of that and we can hand that over to the clerk. I just want to make sure that we've got, whatever that is that we've done our research and we've put something out there that this is how we're going to do it. I don't want that call to be made on a case-by-case basis.
Can we, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, it sounds like we probably, if I'm hearing all this correctly, we could probably stick to the way we had been doing it with the people who write in the regular emails, where Tony does his correspondence report. So really the only, I think, thing we need to talk about is what to do with the people who do the asterisk, 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 you know, those kind of emails. It sounds like those are the ones we kind of need to have an idea of how we want to handle them. And I do like the idea, if they put it in their email, asterisk, 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 then, you know, Tony can bring a copy, hand it right over to Lisa. You know, I don't know, it just seems like it'd be simple enough for me. They obviously want it public or they wouldn't put the asterisk.
Yeah, so why you wanna just chew on it a little while and then come back? Because then what happens too, you might have 50 people doing the same thing. So you just have to keep in mind where you want, and will we scan it for profanity? Will we, scan it for certain things? Like we're gonna have to come up with certain paradigms of, because what if it has in it something vociferously communicated in a colorful way, but yet it is still the person's opinion. Do you have any standards as to what goes in or not into a situation like that? So it's just, this requires some thought.
Good points, yeah, it does, yeah, I hadn't thought about colorful emails.
Like weird things that people might submit that.
Well, I also, there was someone during the budget cycle, that we're starting, had made mention about the correspondence, and it was email about the budget, and I heard you took the feedback, and I like it because, like Karen said, there's gonna be times when we're gonna be, there's gonna be hundreds, then there's gonna be times there's gonna be 2. So I do like the fact that we had, like, you kind of had a chart, like she meant, I don't know if it was a she mentioned doing a chart, like saying, X amount of people said in favor of the budget, X amount of people said they wanted to lessen the budget, X amount of people said that they were, whatever it was. So at least the folks in the room or the folks reading the minutes got a pulse of what some of the correspondence was. I think we're really talking about the sensitive stuff. The kids stuff, the legal things, the colorfulness, right? That maybe people don't understand the ramifications of what that communication will do.
Or they might emotionally do something in the moment that they would really not want there 3 years from now, and they just would be respectful of people's voluntary passions.
I have my 24-hour rule. You type it up, delete it, 24 hours later, you send the email.
So that will go on. We'll add that for a future, once you guys get a chance to dig a little bit deeper and get there, that would be great. Any other points of information?
Go ahead, Kate.
Just with regard to the curriculum committee, thank you, Liz. I am very interested in being the curriculum committee chair. It's something I'm pretty darn passionate about. I shared my resume with Christina and Ashley, and
I love that.
yeah, certainly. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that work. So I hope that that is the decision. So thank you.
I was gonna also address what Liz had just said. Kate had sent in her resume. I found in policy today, I was asking you questions regarding things of how the policy would affect educators. I think you're an expert, and I would like to ask you to consider Kate to be chair of the curriculum committee. Thanks.
Anyone else? Please.
I just like to say that, and I didn't get a chance to get back to you, so I apologize, but I did also send in correspondence in regards to Kate and her education background and Board of Ed background. For curriculum committee, I think this is a brand new committee that this board is putting in place. And so having someone who is knowledgeable and educated and has that experience can really help spearhead that and start us off and set us up for success. So I think that's great. I also made mention, and I just want people to get their wheels turning because I know we're not through budget season, Dr. Willett, but now that we're through that, I also made mention about some opportunities for us with team building and things for us as a board to continue to move forward and be partners and team. It really hit me hard what Gary said the other night with the town council and the Board of Ed. And so, like I said, I was really taking a good, strong, hard look in the mirror, but I also want to be a part of helping us really focus. And, we're all, like a lot of us said, and we all have different visions, but the reason why we're here is to advocate for our child and our children. And so I'm hoping that we can find something that we can work on to align us a little better and move forward. So, and I have some ideas, so I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to respond back to you, but I will.
No problem.
I understand that. I agree with that 100%. And with Kate as well.
I just, and I'll be brief, but did want to throw my opinion there that I believe that Kate would be an excellent chair for that committee. From a policy committee perspective, she has multiple times brought additional information to the conversation that I had no idea existed out there. Has pointed us in some directions in this brief amount of time that we needed to do. So I think she would be an incredible benefit.
Any other questions? Okay. We will move on to the student representative report, Fisher Thompson and Alexandria Costa.
Okay, so we have finalized the date for Mental Health Week. It's March 16th through the 28th. For Monday, we have like a scheduled list of activities or things for each day. So for Monday, we're having pajama day. Tuesday, we're having a guest speaker come in and talk to the entire student body. For Wednesday, we have Zen's Day with Mrs. Fontaine, which is like breathing exercises and just peaceful things.
It's yet to be fully confirmed, but it's going to be on the morning announcements. And
what was it called? I'm sorry.
Zen's Day.
Oh, Zen. Okay.
Zen's Day. Thursday, we're scheduling therapy dogs. We're in the process of confirming them. And then on Friday, we're having like a colored clothing day. I think we're still looking at confirming what color. Colored day.
Yeah, we're not sure if we're going to go for... Because if we do blue, which is blue and green are the primary clothing colors for support of mental health, and your ribbon colors, blue and green. If we do blue, that's also a school color, and it also is something that everyone has in their closet. If we do green, not as many people have vibrant greens in their closet, but it also wouldn't be confused as a school color, so we have to find a median there somewhere. But we will keep you updated on that. The NHS blood drive was today in cooperation with the American Red Cross. When I was just talking to Mrs. Griffin and Mrs. Moran about this, by the time I had left the blood drive, 60 out of 61 of the appointments were filled, that's amazing, and I don't quote me on this, but I think the 61st one did get filled eventually. That's what has happened in past years, so I mean, just based on that, my guess is it was. Then coming up, DECA Estates, their state competitions. They had a meeting yesterday on Tuesday the 25th in preparation for them. The actual competition itself is on March 4th. Around 70 people from DECA are going. And I've heard the test scores, which account for a third of your grade at states, have improved drastically between this year and last, so that's good for us. I just want to touch briefly on the reading things into the minutes. I believe with following Dr. Willett's advice and contacting CAVE, that is doing everything you can to do it in the best practice and with precedents from other boards. I think that is fully responsible. fully responsible, not fully irresponsible. I'll make that distinction. Just from conversations I have personally had with Mrs. Howard Bender about curriculum in general, not only does she know her stuff, not only does she know the books, she very much knows how it affects kids. And that's just from conversations I've had with her. So it seems like the board already has a consensus, but just to add on there.
Thank you, thank you.
Go to superintendent's report. First thing is the healthy food certification.
Yes, this is a mouthful. So, are you ready? You might want to just say motion that. So healthy food certification comes out every year. This district is a nice school to decide on. The district does receive funds.
You're still a lot more than what I have here.
No, this is going to go through the minutes, I think. Yeah. So the district does receive funds for this. And they every year we usually re-up it. It means we do have to follow certain guidelines with respect to food. If you look at consideration 1, 2, and 3, these three considerations are the things that we have to follow in order to receive the funding. So there's a lot of verbiage here, but essentially it breaks down to our pledge to the state by motioning and passing what's set up for you at the bottom, that we are going to be in adherence to provide only a certain level and kind of nutritious food and drink within the schools and during the school day and beyond the school day. It does allow you to create an exemption, and so what I've done is set up the motion language for the healthy food option and motion language for combined food and beverage exemptions. And those exemptions are typically used when you want certain quasi-school organizations to be able to hold fundraisers on your property. So if there's a sports event or a drama production and somebody is selling something, or the pie fundraisers or things that people are doing, if you don't do the exemptions, you'd have to negate all of those. All of it would have to stop. So the best way forward would be to say yes to the healthy food option, which is your motion in number 1, and then to do motion number 2, which gives you the combined food and beverage exemptions so that your PTOs, PTAs, parent groups, and other things can still do the fundraising. The other complication, if you did not do number 2, is that every single building use form I get, I would have to make sure no one ever sold anything on, during school day, on school grounds, or any of that. So it would increase our complexity of the situation hugely.
No, we have to have it.
If we did not have the exemptions, right, like ice cream socials. You'd be having nutrition drink socials.
Let's have some grapes.
Do we have to know everything that could possibly be an exemption in advance? So we have to know about all the ice cream socials,
No, when
Okay.
you pass this, it allows us to do exemptions.
Okay.
It allows me to say, okay, do exemptions, not block things from happening. So essentially, what we get out of it is we get about 10 cents per lunch, depending on what they're willing to give us from the state. That could fluctuate, but for an example, fiscal year 19, we were reimbursed $14,000 roughly, which goes back into the food program, which that makes the food program self-sustaining. So right now, the food program is not in the operating budget; it is absolutely completely self-sustaining, and that's a good thing for the taxpayers of Tolland and for the kids. And the other thing is, you can't go to Subway or anything like that and get a sandwich, the way you can get it in our cafeteria. So it's a very good deal right now. And so our self-sustaining food program, and thanks to the director, Abby Kasman-Harnan, is running wonderfully. And you can't get a meal for what you charge in the schools. So it's a good deal. It's good for kids. And my recommendation would be to pass both motions 1 and 2 the language for the healthy food option and the combined food and beverage exemption.
Madam Chair, so just point of information here, in this case, if we chose to act on this tonight, then the first activity would be to move this to K2.
Action. Right, I'm sorry, yeah, what I would sometimes write in there is, your first action is to move it to action, if you're gonna do it tonight. If this is your first reading, then you just kind of leave it where it is, and the next time we put it in action. If you don't do it soon enough, the state will not accept it. But we're well within the window. This would have to be done before, say, May, June. We're way ahead of that, which was the objective in getting it in.
Does anyone feel that they do need more time to review?
I would say this is something we do every year. I mean, Abby does a phenomenal job offering healthy options, and she's been doing this for a long time.
The cookies have a lot of fiber. Just saying.
They're very popular. I hear
One
about
or
them
two
every
is a good
day.
idea.
Snack
Beyond
points
that?
crazy for the cookies.
Yeah.
And without the exemption, you would be hurting, your parent-teacher organizations severely. Yeah, so, yeah. And I need my Munson's chocolates.
So then I move, Madam Chair, I move that we move this action into board action as K2.
Second?
Discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. So K2 will be the healthy food.
So H2 is, we were tabling that.
We're tabling that, yeah, but I just wanna
And-
make sure we get a time set because we kind of were all over the place.
Okay. So H3 is, if you remember, we put this on, or to the board's memory, we put this on to get us on track now that the budget has been moved to the town for its consideration. Get us on track for the goal setting and initial discussion that the board has decided to have. So this is a first conversation about where you would like to go with that process. Whether you'd like me to help you with that, or whether you'd like me to reach out an independent consultant or person to do it. There are a number of organizations I could turn to if you wanted to do that, to have someone come in and run a goal process with you. We could do it ourselves. I could do it with you. There's a number of ways to do it, but this would be your initial discussion about how you would like to proceed.
I know at one point Karen had mentioned that she did a retreat with the town council and you had someone come in.
That was a joint meeting with the council, that we worked on.
I might have
Yeah, that was
missed it.
that thing.
It was our working
mentioned
agreement, that was our
It was the
working
working-
agreement meeting, that was different.
But similar idea, you had an independent person come in and work on the
Like a
working agreement.
She volunteered for it.
Facilitator.
It's somebody in the community that has that facilitation experience, but if Dr. Willett had something else in mind, I would certainly do that.
And I think we can achieve it a number of ways. I just want, the purpose of this particular item is for you to share how you would like to see that occur. But we can get a facilitator, or we can do ourselves.
See, I think there's benefit in going external for a facilitator. And if we really want to open up and develop goals as a complete unit, trying to facilitate that internally tends to provide a little bit of additional direction.
No, I agree, I think we should, get a person who's not on board to help us, just to be a dispassionate, assistant, I guess. And, I know that we do have some community members that are trained facilitators, so, I'm sure that Kate probably, I don't know, maybe has some friends that can help us with that, so.
I mean, I can compile a list if you want through a series of organizations, Cavs Cave and others. We could just create a list that I could bring to you and say, here are some people who do this. Would you like to consider one of them? Here are their associated costs from free to cost. You know what I mean?
Budget friendly folks.
I can put that over in a little grid, so you can consider it all.
I think when I met with Nick Nixon Cave a while ago,
Siri apparently.
They have different programs for free, like whether it's in a board meeting, they do goal setting workshops, or they also do like a board retreat type of thing, which I don't know how long those last. Sure, nobody wants to spend an entire Saturday together, but maybe a couple hours. I think it would be good team building. I like the fact that Kate will know best practices from other boards too. They can kind of, this is the only board I've ever been on. And when I reach out to other boards or look at other things, everybody, 169 towns does everything differently. I've come to find out. So I would advocate for Kate, but also I think it was me that mentioned that moderator at that joint town council meeting, because it was, I guess I just liked how she had a way of bringing people together. And there has been a lot of tension, there's, whether it's, in the audience or at the boardroom or with the council or wherever that tension exists, and she was very good at alleviating that, so I like that side. So I'd be interested in seeing the list.
Would you by chance happen to know?
I think Karen.
Yeah, we could put that one on those.
I don't know if she'd be available or wanted to again, but.
I mean, I can collect and compile it, including Kate, if you want. Your process.
No, of course I no, I do like having an outside moderator. I also think that it's someone who has no attachment to us, so it's having that, and they could kind of influence other conversations because they're non-biased, I guess is the word that I would use. But I think it's paramount. I think it's optimum to our success. So I'm all for any of the ideas. I think having a trained facilitator, I think the Cape would have resources, like you said, knowing what other towns do or best practices, just to kind of absorb and do the right thing and move forward.
I absolutely agree with Dana. I like the idea of having an outside person. I also really like the idea of a retreat. I think kind of getting away from this U-shaped desk setting might be kind of nice. And just, I don't know. I just think it would be.
Like moving around a room.
Yeah, I just think it would be a good idea. So, see where it takes us.
Anyone else? Okay, so we can get a list of that.
I do have.
So I will go find.
Is that something that we can invite the student council to be with us? I don't know what the rules are.
Student representatives.
Student representatives, yes, but they are on the council, right? I just think, but I apologize for saying the wrong.
No, you didn't. I just
They're
mean
part
there
of
are two
student
there.
council. They
Sorry,
are.
student
They're-
I only want to clarify, do you want the whole council? Or do you want,
Well, I don't know, that might be great too. I just don't know what that is.
We need to do our own first.
No, I don't know what the rules are.
Yeah, no, I don't.
Involved, since they're here at our meetings and they're
I would
involved
love-
with us,
yeah, I'd love
I think it might behoove us to have Alexandra.
Would you like that?
I'm fine.
We're putting you on the spot here. Would you like to come to our Saturday all-day retreat?
Sorry.
Sure.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, because it is a forum, it has to be a public meeting, so really anybody could go, but as a retreat,
I think
people would leave us alone. Maybe not, I don't know.
graduates too.
Yes.
So we've had Bishop that go too, and we've got this awesome.
Right.
Then I will, so just taking away from that, I'm going to compile a list of facilitators. If you have any, let me know. I'll check with KCAPS and other organizations from zero cost to some cost, or part of membership. And I will research retreat locations.
Perfect, thank you. That sounds
And then I drive up with this.
it's like Georgia said, the library film would be
But,
good.
the library program was.
If it's safe this warm, you can have it outside.
It's anything like it's been.
We haven't voted the exception yet.
It's potluck, we don't have money.
No, I mean, could we bring food into the library program room?
We have had food.
Okay.
So if that's it for goal setting, I'll move to H4, recognition of students and staff. So what we try to do every third meeting, and bringing that back now that we've moved forward in the budget season on the board side. I like to do some recognition. So what I wanted to do tonight is recognize the teachers for the education of the whole board, but also for the people in the public to thank the teachers directly for the instructional rounds. It does take a lot of time and energy to do that. So Michelle Kolosinski was one of the teachers, Stoddard Slayton, Lori Starozic, Ted McCarthy, Karen Libby, and Jim Deneen as the principal for helping set all of that up. Just to give them props, if you will, or give them our sincere thanks for helping work through that. It does take a lot of time and energy to pull that together, and they did an amazing job. So I just wanted to publicly thank them and use this meeting as a to recognize them and thank them for what they did.
Could we also, I don't know all the names, but I'd love to give a shout out to the paras who were in all those rooms as well. I know Mrs. Ricani was one of them, Mrs. McCluskey. I'm not sure who was in Mrs. Kolosinski's classroom. She was sitting.
I know, I think her first name is Jody, I don't.
And Mrs. Libby. So anyway, just to also kind of,
just so you know, each
that had to be
month,
tough on them as well.
every third meeting, we will recognize some group or people, and paras have been in the past, some, and will be in the future.
Okay.
But this one was just around those teachers, you know, specifically, but yes, definitely. And we'll definitely be doing paras too.
Great.
Yay!
I just want to add on, you know, in addition to giving their time and the interruption of their normal routines, I was particularly pleased with the roundtable discussion that we had there at the end and the openness that they were willing to do. They were willing to not only answer all of our questions, but give their opinions on the effects of how things are going in that school. And I thought that particularly useful. So thank you. And thank you, Dr. Wood, for setting that up. That was very wonderful.
The next one is coming up in April, and as soon as I get everything banged down, we'll push that out there soon so you can sign up.
Thank you.
And thanks to the students for letting us hover.
Yes.
I'm sure they were like, we're these people here.
However, that last class that we were in the classroom, the kids came in for the recess and they were excited to do that. And it was really
It's impressive that they gave up recess.
It was raining that day.
Yeah. Oh, and then,
Yeah.
the reading specialist rooms. They gave up recess to come in and do all
They did the drills.
their drills and flashcards
That's right,
and stuff.
yep.
Oh, that's awesome.
So
Yeah,
that
it
was,
good.
Yeah, that's great.
okay, so now we are on H5. Which is a discussion protocol of Board of Ed members.
So I'll just go since I'm the one running up. I just wanted to make sure that we all, you know, especially during budget season, which is kind of, you know, out of the norm, but that we have some kind of protocol, you know, kind of like with the minutes and people writing in, that we are cognizant of Dr. Willett's work week and that his first priority is leading the district, and I realize that he reports to all of us, and he will always say that he's gonna do whatever we ask. But I was wondering if we could set something up where if we are all kind of peppering him with questions or requests, that maybe it goes through you as the chair, Ashley, and then you would prioritize maybe. And maybe we limit it to like 4 hours of his work week. Because if we continue to pepper him with things, it just kind of takes over. And I just wanna make sure that we have some kind of protocol in place maybe for the board.
Well, I think that, I know there's a lot of times that Tony will CC me on policy questions or different points, but I think.
I mean, committee work is
that-
one thing, like if it has something to do with committee work, obviously you wanna set your agendas and things like that, but if we're texting him or, you know, emails and whatnot, you know, he's gonna feel obligated to take care of that for us because he reports to us, but, I just think-
Not to put you on the spot, but how would. You know.
Yeah, I can't appreciate enough that you're bringing it up, thank you. That's very nice.
I know what
To be
you're gonna
thinking-
say,
To
but.
be thinking about that is very kind, and I appreciate it. So it caught me off guard because I didn't realize, didn't think about this ahead of time, so I'm kind of ripping off the top of my head here. My goal is to be extremely responsive to all of you, so texting me, calling me, things like that, I understand and kind of open the door for that kind of thing. What I would say is, and I've said this before, just keeping in mind when you communicate with me that I am understaffed. Like, I don't have staff that other superintendents have. So if I cannot get back to you right away, which is my goal, but if I have to say, push something off or put it in a certain prioritization, it's because I'm doing the job of the district, not because I don't want to respond to you, or if there's something I have as a project over here. So mission critical or crucial things, obviously, I'll jump on and handle right away, because that's part of what you do, you prioritize, triage. But, just being understanding that there's no ill will if there isn't something I can jump on immediately. That would be what I would ask. Just an understanding of that. So like I said, I'm willing to not, I said I would rather not have $150,000 or $70,000 out of the budget and risk losing 3 more staff. I wouldn't want to have a director or curriculum that meant that we were going to lose those 3 or 4 more staff in the future. But again, I would reiterate just, simply have an understanding. Yeah, about that.
Karen, I'm sorry, I abstained from voting. It was a shock, so I'm sorry I abstained from voting.
It's a discussion, I don't know what, no offense, I didn't understand why you were abstaining, because it's just a discussion for the board to have about.
And I apologize, I recognize that, and I was just thinking back to other times, so I think it was, that battle in me, so I apologize. I do think it's a good discussion. I think what is important for everyone to know is, yes, Dr. Lulu, I guess you report to all of us, but your direction has to come from the board in this room, because when things come out of committee, it might come out of committee, but then it's in this room that things are decided. So I guess maybe I don't see as many emails or texts or what's going through, and you've always had a open door policy, so it's very easy to say, oh, it was a quick question, I'll just text you, but I think we would be more cognizant of your time. But no, just in general, I think the protocol, historically was, I would email Colleen when she was chair, and it would go to you. But the direction has to come from all of us, right?
I know Tony has it.
I think there's a distinction that has to be made between, the questions and the communication and direction. From my, and it's a bit vague, but from my read of our policy, direction, well, it's the voice of the board, the direction should go through the chair. So I think you'll see, and Ashley made comment to it, I may email Dr. Willett asking about, mastering learning or something like that, under the assumption that that's going to end up in his queue, and at some point it'll pop out the top and I'll get a reply. But if I've got something that I particularly need, like, hey, we've got this policy issue, we've got these kind of things, I do CC you, because in reality, I'm assuming that that is coming through the chair to go over to you. So I think there's 2 different avenues there. On one hand, I am incredibly cognizant to the amount of work that Dr. Willett has on his plate. I also assume that when he gets close to reaching critical mass, he's going to let us know. At least that's what I would ask. I don't think anybody has a true vision or a true perception as to how busy or how the capacity Dr. Willett has, except for him. So I'd be hesitant to put words into his mouth there.
I would be concerned with using words like critical mass, because the majority of his time should be spent on leading this district, and he's not going to say, I'm done, you guys, stop, stop. It's not going to happen. Sorry, Dr. Willett, you're not going to do that. So I just think that we should have some protocols in place for, if it has to do with a committee, obviously, when I'm preparing my agenda, I might reach out and say, is there anything particular you want to address in the committee meeting? but things like, I mean, it can all add up, so whether it's mastery learning or other things, that might be something he's working on, and if Ashley knows that 3 people are asking about mastery learning, well, okay, well then that's a priority. Let's talk about it at the board meeting. She can put it on the agenda or talk to Dr. Willett about, you know what, maybe we should do a mastery learning presentation or whatever it may be. I just think that there should be a protocol and
There's a contact me part of the website. I don't know if you've noticed that part. The contact me part has a designation for levels of seriousness. And it has, if this is a massive, like it's an extremely important thing, do this. And if it's, and it has timelines next to it about what you can expect in terms of a general response time when you use these different methods. So if you're in a situation that's crucial or critical, and you're hoping or needing help right away, texting is a great way to do it. Like if there's something you're really in trouble about and I need to you need help, that's a great way to do it. And that has a response time of, within a 24-hour period, I'll probably be able to get back to that. An email could go into a pile of 100, 100 emails a day, literally, because it comes in from a lot of different places. So part of it is just recognizing the methodology one uses and then not understand where the timeline is in response if these methodologies are used. So texting is fairly rapid, setting up a meeting is getting a fixed thing. Sending an email, I kind of have it set up so they pop up pretty quick for me and I can try to grab them, but then I'll triage them based on what's going on around me. But emails, have a longer response time because A, I might not see it right away, and B, it's triaged with other stuff. So, my goal is to be responsive and helpful, and I'm your chief executive officer running the district, so there's going to be all kinds of things going on. So I would just say, understanding that if something's thrown out there, if it's not something that looks like, there's imminent harm, danger, or something else going on, I may not get to that right away, but I'll get to it and not take it as, and I don't think we have, but not take it as a this or something like that. Yeah. And if something did get sent an email that you did not see a response to for some period of time, call or text or set up a meeting or any of those, because perhaps it got junked or got into the junk folder somehow or got missed. So just don't let it sit if you didn't see something, then jump in. But I don't think any of you have had any of those experiences. I think I would venture to guess that most of your experiences are a pretty rapid response no matter what.
Yeah,
So I just say,
I
think you've all been very rapidly responded to.
Yeah.
And I would just suggest what I'm asking for if I was going to ask anything is, just be understanding of there is a magnitude of things that happen during the day that include suicide ideations and include emergencies and includes personnel issues and include all kinds of things. So I won't, if I am not responding, there is a good reason. It is not because there's some clandestine effort to to ignore whatever is being reached out to. But workload is an issue. So I just I try to balance it.
Can I don't think that, first of all, you've always been responsive. I don't think that's the issue. I think the issue is more just making sure that all of us individually are being reasonable with the requests we make. So can I make a proposal? I just wrote it. Any general questions, concerns, or requests for additional information from individual, if I wanted to know about XYZ, just send it to Ashley, and then when Ashley meets, and Christina, when you meet with them, you could decide, is this gonna go to the agenda, and yada yada. Kind of just like an extra filter, I guess. And then for committee questions, concerns, requests, that should go from the chair, I don't know, from the chair of the committee to the superintendent, with the CC to the leadership. It's just an idea.
Yeah. The only thing I wouldn't want is I don't want surprises. So for instance, I wouldn't want something to sort of blindside me because I didn't hear about it.
Well, and I guess with the caveat, I guess I would have the caveat is if there's something that's really worrisome or, we would contact you directly. I don't
Or
know,
Jen.
or Jen,
Jen is
is secretary.
I mean, I've done that too, like, just something comes up and.
My question was really just gonna be, what do you prefer? Like, what do you, I thought Kate's proposal was kind of what I was thinking too. Is that what you would prefer?
That's what I had in mind when I brought it up,
Anything,
was just kind of having something.
emergency wise, we would, or well, I guess our emergency and your emergency might not necessarily be the same, but anything I guess that we felt was extremely important that for whatever reason we needed an answer, we could contact you directly, but kind of, like Kate said, general questions go through Ashley, committee questions, because I think we talked about this in FFC, that Dana, Rini, and Jacob, if they had anything specific, they would send it to me, and then I would kind of compile if there's anything that we would want to know before a meeting, especially then to send to you. So are you still okay with kind of that
Yeah,
route?
I would say direct collaboration with subcommittees chairs,
Okay.
because we need to in order to get agendas, worked out, things like that. Certainly, we meet every other week for agenda creation and other things, so I don't mind certain things being tabled until that time. That works fine for me. I think it's just for me, it's, and again, I just want, I will always process things as quickly as I possibly can, no matter what location they come from. So just keeping in mind that dynamic. And I appreciate the thoughtfulness behind it. We are in a kind of unique spot because our central office doesn't have the structure or stuff in certain places that others do. So some of that, will play into how this all gets managed.
So Ashley, if okay with you, I think maybe just if we all kind of agree on a consensus of maybe what Kate wrote up and just.
Yeah, I can just shoot that to you if you want, and then we can maybe look at it next meeting, or just say, yes, we.
I don't know, you want a policy, is this like a policy kind of?
I don't think it's a policy, I
Or
think it's
just-
more of
A
a
general,
how we run our
general working
meetings.
agreement for all of us
Working
with the
agreement.
superintendent, that's
That's
all.
fine, I mean, Christina and I talked about it at FFC one night because it was right in the middle of budget season, and I know that we had all had a million questions from FFC, and then everybody had a million questions from the 9 of us going through that. We were emailing and we were putting stuff through the budget dashboard and what have you, so, it just kind of, it came up to us about, what if 4 of us or 5 of us are writing the same question, and now it's 4 or 5 emails unnecessarily, where it could have been 1 email. Right, it would eliminate redundancy and absorbing time unnecessarily, I guess, is
One of the places that probably will need the greatest amount of consideration or deference to some extent will be not so much, and I appreciate all the efforts you're making, and I'm totally go with it, whatever you feel is the protocol you want to use. It's going to be how I triage things coming in from non-board members too. So like if something's coming in that's, I put priority on the things that you're asking me to do. If I get non-board members with, I'll have to triage that. That has to be triaged. So, that's part of the picture. And, if I get a multi-page request from a non-board member, that gets triaged in a way that I would do any other kind of request of that kind. So that's the other big consideration in there. And that may or may not be, something that people would understand. And so that's where I will request your understanding, because I gotta run the district. So I can answer and do certain things, but some other ones have to go on a timeline, and that, it has to be as soon as I can get to it. And that has to be good enough if you want the district to be run correctly,
No, I
So
think you
that's
did a great
more of
job
where that was,
with your, so if you could just send that out.
Yeah, sure.
And that way Rini and Jacob can peruse that as well, and then we can just talk about it again.
Thank you.
No problem. Now, the committee and liaison report, so policy met right before this, so if you want to say anything.
Just briefly, like you said, we met immediately before this meeting. We discussed how we were going to identify what topics would go on the agenda. And so I want to kind of put out to the board and also to the people out there in the community that if you have policies that are particularly near and dear to your heart that you stay up nights reading and would like us to take a look at it, please shoot myself or Dr. Willett an email with that policy and we'll make sure that it gets into the queue and then prioritize. We also then, along that lines, looked at policy 6011 is an instruction and graduation requirements. And then 5040 on transportation. Both of those we approved within the committee changes. Dr. Willett still got a little bit of machining to do with those, but those will be ready for the next agenda setting meeting.
Were those just general, like,
They were like
Yeah.
compliance things,
Those
like
some
legalese.
compliance, I read it, but I'll put the whole thing kind of report, but it'll be very straightforward.
I know those kind of things come up regularly.
And so we've got
Change language and stuff.
Yeah,
the
graduation
procedure that we put together kind of leans and creates space on the agenda to catch us up on a lot of those. Dr. Willett's going to publish a list of how that is. The ones that require a little bit more discussion and are less state statute related and more really getting into the weeds of how our policies go into a separate bucket and they get set together. I could put together some things for you, Madam Chair, on that and how we're going to do that, but it makes sure that attention's given to both.
Okay, that's good. Communications, did you guys?
Communications has not met since last time, but I did want to do a report about the complete count committee for the census 2020 because I'm representing the board on that committee. And I haven't been able to report about it because we were either like here till 11 o'clock for budget or just didn't have time. So I'm just going to give a quick update. I don't know if you guys saw the letter from the town manager that went out. It was also included in Dr. Willett's bulletin. There's also a tab on the town website about the census with a lot of information and like common questions that are asked about the census. During March 12th through the 20th is when residents should be receiving first invitation to respond to the census. It includes phone numbers in English and 12 other languages, I believe. That's the time frame that residents should be receiving that first invitation. This is the first year that this is the first time they'll be offering it online, so people should be able to go online and do it. It's 9 questions, fairly easy. March 16th through the 24th will be a second reminder, and that will go out automatic via mail. And then after that, I think there'll be 3 more contacts to people. Through May 3rd, there'll be a reminder postcard coming out. There's a paper reminder April 8th through the 16th, and I think another follow-up postcard after that. And then if you still haven't responded, there are census workers that are applying for the jobs now that will come out in the community and be knocking on your door. There's a lot of things in place for reaching people that may be hard to reach or may not understand what it's about. Everything's private, your information is private. Everything should be finished as far as correspondence to residents by the end of April. And it's really important that everyone gets counted, including children. You know, people get counted where you are, I think, as of April 1st. So college students have to do it while they're at college. Just making sure that you're counting your children and all of that, because it has everything to do with how Tolland receives its funding, and how the schools receive their funding, that everyone gets counted. So it's really important.
And does it hurt us then, like with our college kids in college?
They are supposed to do their own at college.
Okay,
Shouldn't count them twice.
okay. I mean, you
I'm
had
not
said something
sure.
about getting funding. I was just wondering, does
Oh.
that kind of go against us then if like all these kids who technically live in Tolland, but.
No, it's more about school children,
Okay.
like in the
So
schools.
so under 18
So for
for
me,
the
I'm
most
taking
part.
my 3 children to Ellington.
Okay.
with
Right,
my
so
daughters in college.
I'm gonna work with Dr. Willett on getting, so there's all kinds of resource materials online for the census. I sent a couple things to Laurel Leibowitz for FRC, and then like the committee talked about how we're gonna reach out to the community. So Brenda Felucci's on the committee too. We talked about getting together and kind of pulling together some flyers and things that we can post around town, get them to the preschools and things like that, because everyone, it's really, really important that everyone gets counted. And that residents and people know to make sure to get it done. So,
Perfect, thank you.
I think I covered as much as I can. It's really important.
Did you wanna have anything for Birch Grove?
No, we haven't had a meeting. We do have a meeting on Tuesday. One thing that Katie Murray, our chair, has urged is that folks from the community know that it's an open meeting, that folks in the committee, she's urged folks on our board, although I go to represent us. She's been very forthcoming. It is a very large project, and it's so very important that the entire community is involved. So spread the word and let people know that it is a public meeting. Is more in attendance, again, knowledge is power, so, and we're getting through some critical moments with value engineering right now, and really fine tuning the budgeting process with it. And some fun stuff too, like the playscape and those kind of things, and making part of it ADA accessible, where, you know, some of it is going to have similar foundation, or similar ground, such as like Adam's Adventure. However, not the whole part, because they're also aware of the long-term sustainability and costs for replacing. So we have to make sure that we're cost effective as well, not just for the project, but going forward. So those are all conversations that are being had. So again, without going on and on, please read the minutes or attend the meetings. It's quite interesting work.
Finance and facilities met last Wednesday. We mostly talked about the presentation for the joint meeting the other night, so that was kind of our focus. And Dr. Willett did a great job with his presentation, thank you, considering we threw it at him, you know, only 5 days in advance. We also just kind of went over the January numbers again, a little bit more detail at that meeting, and so yeah, we'll just kind of see where we go for the March meeting. I think, Tony, interestingly, I think 3010 is a policy that we'll probably be looking at soon at FFC. And so we'll put that on the agenda at some point coming up. But now that kind of the bulk of the budget work is behind us, I think FFC will have a lot less questions. So, but it was a very nice, it was a good meeting last week, so thank you.
Yeah. So, Christine brought up a good point there. This is one of the things from a policy committee perspective. There are a handful of those policies that we're going to want to review where the topic falls within the committee, one of the other committees. And we're looking at getting with that chair. 3010 is a prime example of 1000 from the communication perspective. There's a homework one from the curriculum committee perspective. The policy committee is looking at getting with that committee and maybe joining to have that topic conversation and then pulling the recommendations back to look at the policy modifications if necessary. So more to come on that.
Okay. I think we got over all the policy committee. I don't think we're missing anything. Okay. Chairperson's report.
Council meeting? Council meeting last night?
Council meeting, yeah. There's so many meetings I can't even keep track.
Meeting about the meeting.
There's
Yes.
9 of us.
No, absolutely. And in fact, I forgot about putting the report in there, but
Thought of you last night, Tony. Tony can go, yay.
a large part of last night's conversation with the committee was on the sale of the property to Mr. Williams for development. The public showed up and there was a lot of discussion. They ended up voting to proceed forward with that. The exciting part for us is that they also voted to approve the selection of the third-party auditor for the next period. I know that the town funds about 50% of that, and then the board funds the other 50%. So it's my understanding that they chose to go with the company that currently does it. They came in with the best bid and so the proposal, and so they chose to stick with that and made that decision.
Anything else? I'm not missing anything else now. Any other meetings? Oh, okay. Once again, I just wanted to, I'm really actually looking forward to the goal setting process. I think, this will give us an opportunity to dig in as a team. I think that, the higher level new visions discussions can be really exciting, and it's really great to have everyone come together. I honestly would have preferred if we had started off with this from the beginning. However, with weather issues, it was postponed. But I do believe that we can come together as a team and just have that positive outlook for the future. So, once again, I'm really excited. So,
Actually, can I make one point of order? One point, real quick. Just since we were talking about committees and structure, the committees and the board exist for public need. If the public wants something put in through a committee, that's the appropriate course for a public member doing something, or through the board. Staff should always come through the structure, the superintendent, the administration. They shouldn't go through individual board members. So it's just protocols.
So can you repeat that again? Sorry.
So if you have, for your board chair and for policy considerations or curriculum considerations, we have structures for curriculum within the administrative structure. So staff come through that administrative structure. They don't come through individual board members or committee chairs for that kind of thing. Staff shouldn't be interacting with board members or vice versa for things like that.
Staff shouldn't be interacting with board members.
Right, or vice versa, for things like that. I mean, how's your day and how are things go? I mean, that's, general cordialities, but I would like to see X and Z go through policy, or I would like to see X, Y, and Z go through curriculum. That would not be an appropriate course of action for staff. That would come through superintendent, but a Joe community member, that would be different. So that's just courses, protocols, responsibilities, roles and responsibilities, that kind of thing.
Points of access.
Points of access, structures, protocols.
Next is board action. A1 is the 9060 second read and Board of Ed action.
All right, Madam Chair, thank you. As you said, this is the second read of Board of Education Policy 9060, which is the policy regarding the suspension of policies, bylaws, or administrative regulations. The adjustment that we made was in bullet point 2, excuse me, which says the policies of the Board of Education shall be subject to suspension for a specified purpose and limited time upon and here's where the change, 2/3 vote of all members of the board when no such written notice has been given. The purpose of the change here is previously it said a majority vote when no notice has been given. We wanted to change this to a 2/3 vote to, one, make it more difficult to suspend policies if no notice has been given. We want to lean more towards giving that notice, having time to adjust, and ergo, make that path the easiest path. What we request here is after the discussion that we would motion to approve.
Well, we kind of added it to the board action, so if someone wants to make a motion, then discussion.
Okay. Well, then I'll go ahead. I'd like to move that the board approve the amendments to policy 9060 as written.
Second.
Discussion. Anyone have anything that they would like to add to the? Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, motion passes. Okay, and now we have the healthy food options. Who would like to read that for a motion?
You could make a motion and then just say as stated,
Okay.
you know.
Somebody's making motions.
K2, action item K2, but we're, you know, superintendent's gotta make more action items. You know, motion one.
Well, I'm entertaining the motion, so.
Yeah, right.
Madam Chair, I move that we accept motion language option 1 for healthy food option as written in K2.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? Motion passes.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve option 2, the motion language for combined food and beverage exemptions as written in material for action K2.
Second. Discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. We'll go to public participation. There's a 2-minute limit and comments must be limited to items on this agenda.
You're the only one left.
Do I have to stand up? Okay,
You can take the mic with you to.
I was actually not gonna say anything, but then I read down below where it says the.
George, and your address, please.
I'm sorry, but you don't know it, it's George Aldrich, 36 Vision Game Road, Boston Gun Nuts. On the future thing, and the school rounds and tours, is that gonna be open to the public? That's something I'd like to do.
I could create a version that is. These were designed so that board members had some extended time to be able to talk to, see things and talk to teachers. But I've hoped and wanted to do some public kinds of things like that, so I'm happy to do that. Probably have to be looking at doing that in late spring or next year. But for individuals, like for what we talked about, I would be happy to give you a tour of the schools. Or any person who wants to have a general tour of school. What the instructional rounds do is they go straight into classrooms and they do all kinds of stuff in classrooms for long periods of time. So yeah, I think what you're interested in is more like a facility tour.
Yeah.
And I'd be happy to do that personally if you need to.
I'm so old.
Just call the
that-
superintendent's office and say you wanted to do that. I would.
Jen will schedule you.
Yeah.
Yes, general schedule you, I'll drive, we can go around.
Okay, good. Yeah, because I'm so old, I've never been in any of the schools, other than for town meetings and stuff.
Sure. Bring your friends.
Okay, thank you.
Points of information, we have the town council special minutes, meeting minutes, and the capital budget public hearing for points of information. Does anyone have anything to say? Next will be the future. Dr. Willett, is there anything that you want to touch base on that?
There's a lot of good stuff here, and so, the rounds are an ongoing thing. Next one is in April. We're putting information about that. Middle school next, yeah. And a lot of teachers excited to do some things there. Mental health initiatives, I'm ready to do that, when we get, if you want to do that outside of budget season, maybe in May, we can do that. If you want to do it that's fine with me, as well as most of the other ones. Graduate over
Just a
graduate,
quick question before we move on to the mental health. Did the town council come up with a date for when they were going to have their, like they had mentioned something at one point?
yeah, commission, and to the extent that I don't know for sure. No one's
Okay.
reached out to me directly yet. Having said that, the school system sort of mental health stuff will probably take a slightly different angle than
Yeah.
the broader municipal side. But we can do it whatever way. Portrait of a Graduate, I'm going to be going out and doing community focused sessions as part of the process for Portrait of a Graduate, so board members are welcome to come. The only issue is you can't have too many of you in one place at one time. So you might have to regulate some of that, or it turns into an official meeting, or, So the purpose of Portrait of Graduate is for me to go out to people who are science professionals in the community and get their feedback about certain dispositions and skill sets they feel the school system should have for science. And going out to math and engineering professionals and going out to these different groups. So I'll be setting those up soon. I would say that when you see them released, because I'll post things on the Board of Ed dashboard and things like that, that you check in with me if you're going to come, because one of you could come, but if you start coming in large numbers, then it creates a...
This seems like something we should coordinate through Ashley, make sure that we don't overwhelm that.
Maybe you could do like a little Google sign up poll thing.
You know what though?
I gotta be honest.
That might be a direct one, because you just say, hey,
He
I'm
was
coming,
he was very excited to do the Google form for the curriculum committee. He was very excited to do that.
I can make it, I can make it structured, I can't make it
No, but he was like, I will do that, no problem. I said, okay.
Yeah, I mean, and things like this, like if you say yes to Tony and then someone calls me afterward, that say Tony got that. For that committee. But that's probably the biggest thing happening next, is that. And the rest of it, I think the board would have to prioritize what it wants to see. Obviously, goal setting is right up there. But,
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Yay. You heard, motion passes.